Hi, Cabinet of Wonders people. We are reading chapter 16 today called Iris's Invention. More than 2 weeks passed. Petra hadn't yet had a free moment to even step outside of the castle, and the only sunshine she saw came through the skylights of the dye works. Her life fell into a steady pattern. She woke up at dawn, she powdered minerals or steeped flowers in water, or scraped the insides of imported seashells. Dye stained her hands with interesting colors. She ate lunch with Iris. She desperately tried to forget how the kitchen workers treated Iris's food. Petra ate dinner with the other servants in their eating hall. Sadie kept her close by, watching over her like an older sister. She taught Petra how to sew money into her skirts for safekeeping. One night, Petra took a needle, thread, and Tomek's marvels into the privy. There she hid the spheres in the hem of her dress, hoping they wouldn't break. Although Petra always hated wearing skirts, she now had to admit that they had their uses. Many things began to weigh heavily on Petra's mind. Even though the servants were each allotted a small locked wooden chest for their most valued possessions, she worried about keeping her father's notebook in a place that could be easily searched. And she wondered if Lucy and Pavel had left Prague already. Had her family yet learned that she was somewhere among the thousands of the people in the city? She wished she could write a letter telling them that she was safe, but she was unsure how to send it. Anything mailed from the castle was subject to be read, and would be stamped with a salamander-shaped seal that would betray where she was. What troubled her most, however, was that she was no closer to her goal. She had no idea where the prince kept her father's eyes. She hadn't even seen anything of the castle beyond the servants' quarters and the thinker's wing. One morning, Petra strolled down the thinker's wing, humming a tune. The doors flanked her like silent soldiers. She idly gripped a doorknob. It rattled, but would not turn. Petra stopped humming because she suddenly recognized the melody on her lips. It was the Grasshopper, the song she and her father danced 2 years ago. A longing for home filled her heart. She tried to ignore it, staring down the thinker's wing. Surely her father had worked in one of these laboratories. Petra tried the doors until she found one that was unlocked. She pushed it open and stepped inside. A shuddering wave of power hit her. Astrophil squealed and pinched her ear. She was thrown back into the hallway on her bottom, her teeth chattering. She stood up, dusting herself off. The closed doors looked smug. I'm not afraid of you, she told them. Speak for yourself, said Astrophil. After Petra rattled several more locked doorknobs, one turned in her hand. She stuck a toe inside the room as if testing the waters of a chilly lake. She and Astrophil sighed with relief when nothing happened. Inside the laboratory was a man with paint-smeared clothes. He was staring at a canvas the size of a wall. When he noticed Petra's presence, he was friendly and introduced himself as Christoph, an artist from Poland. But he spoke barely any Czech. Soon he forgot that Petra was in the room and just resumed staring at the utterly blank canvas. Petra saw him use a brush to dab pink paint on a canvas. The color quickly disappeared, leaving the surface as empty as it was before. Christoph looked pleased, but Petra was confused. She didn't see how an absent-minded artist and his absent art would help her quest, so she did not return to Christoph's studio. Every day she tried the locked doors, but with no further luck. She attempted to take the stairs to the next floor of the castle, but was rudely stopped by guards. As Iris's assistant, Petra had a pass that gave her access to the Thinker's Wing, but she was not allowed beyond that. She began to feel that her idea to seek a job at the castle in order to rescue her father's eyes was a mistake. It didn't make her feel better that the one person who said he would help her was nowhere to be seen. Neil was as invisible as if Christoph had painted his portrait. She supposed that Neil, despite what he'd said, had never bothered to get a job in the stables. There was never a moment's rest when Petra was in the dye works, and she was surprised to find that this suited her. Working to meet Iris's demands distracted her from thinking about how her plan was proving to be a failure. And as she slowly learned how to prepare and mix pigments, Petra felt like she was atoning for something, for not trying harder to practice her father's trade. In the dye works, she strove to do well. Iris criticized Petra's work, but the girl knew that she was deft at carrying out Iris's commands. Although Iris complained, Petra began to suspect that her words were really praise given in a grouchy tone, such as, "You ground this ochre too finely." Petra could tell the difference between this kind of comment and words expressed with real irritation, such as when Iris grumbled about receiving orders for hair dyes. As if I didn't have enough to do, as if my highest priority was keeping Lady Hortensia's hair a sunny yellow. If you ask me, it would be far easier for her to catch an eligible husband if she were to buy a new brain, but no. Everybody has to look as fine as possible for the prince's ball, and they don't care a whit that I am on the brink of an important discovery. The prince, Iris revealed, would soon turn 19. An elaborate celebration would be held in his honor. Her gift to him would be the invention of a new primary color. Currently, there are only 3 primary colors: blue, yellow, and red. Every other color is a mix of these 3, except white, which doesn't count as a color. White is the absence of color, Astrophil informed Petra. I know that, Petra thought back. Imagine, Iris continued, light gleaming on the lenses of her spectacles. Imagine that there was another primary color. It would open a world of possibilities. You can mix red and yellow to get orange, and red and blue to make purple. But what would happen if you mixed a new primary color with red? What would you see? Petra was less interested in the invention of a new primary color than she was in the birthday celebration. Perhaps while everyone was busy, she would be able to skulk around the castle. Will the celebration take place here? She asked. She hoped that the prince would decide to have it in a hunting lodge hundreds of miles away. Of course, and you will get to see some of it. Really? Oh, yes. Prince Rodolfo is good to his people. He believes that everyone should join in his happiness. It amazed Petra that a woman as intelligent as Iris could think well of somebody Petra knew to have a black heart. But one day, while grading a madder root, Petra asked the following question. Do you make Kristoff's paints? Kristoff? Iris frowned. I suppose you mean the pole down the hall? Yes, I met him last week. Did you? Well, I would advise you not to keep his company. You are my assistant. If anyone is going to get rid of you, it will be me. Petra didn't understand what she meant by that, but she could tell that Kristoff wasn't on Iris's list of favorite people, though she had a hard time imagining who would be on that list, except maybe the prince. So you don't make his paints. I most certainly do not. I told Prince Rodolfo somebody else would have to do that disagreeable job. She pursed her lips at Petra's baffled expression. She said testily, Kristoff makes things disappear. That is his talent. Of course, it has its limits like anything else. He can only make things disappear, though I assure you that is he can only make living things disappear, though I assure you that is quite enough. Let's say he wanted to make you disappear. He would need to make a brush that included a strand of your hair and paint mixed with your blood. Then he would paint your portrait. Since people don't exactly leave their blood lying around, there are only a certain number of poor, foolish people he can paint, thank goodness. Petra thought about Kristoff, about his unlocked door and sweet manner. She thought about how the prince had tricked her father into thinking he was a friend. If you would like to know how easy it is to overlook evil, to see it for something else, Petra could tell you. It is the easiest thing in the world. Servants at the Salamander Castle were allowed 1 day off a month. Petra was eagerly looking forward to her first free day when unexpectedly it came early. She got a sick day of sorts, but she was not the one who was ill. Iris had an acid attack. One morning, Petra pushed open the door to the dye works and was greeted with a strange sight. Footprints had melted into the stone floor. The puddle-like holes trailed from the bright side of the room and disappeared into the dark half where the part of the velvet curtain was burned away. Iris? Petra called. Are you there? Are you all right? Of course I am. Iris was hiding behind the remainder of the black curtain, naked, Petra guessed. I just got upset. But you always get upset. This is different. Petra heard the sniff of someone whose handkerchief had disintegrated. When I get very, very angry or depressed, my skin churns out acid like your grandmother's best cow makes milk. Petra decided not to mention that she had neither a grandmother nor a cow. She was concerned about Iris because it probably wasn't so entertaining to be naked and trapped in an adamantine chair behind a curtain. Well, are you angry or sad? It didn't seem too difficult to tell the answer to the question, since Petra had heard more than one snotty sniffle, but she thought she would ask. I'm both! Iris pounded the arm of her chair. The moment I give that hedgehog Hortensia her hair dye, what do you think happens? I'll tell you. 26 of her closest friends and enemies march in here wanting the exact same color. 26. Do they think that I'm going to... Do they stop to think that they're all going to look like a row of identical dotty daffodils? No. Why, oh why does the court have to become a playground for flirtation between the rich, magicless, and brainless? Petra knew the answer as well as Iris did. There was no place else for them to go. When aristocratic children failed the academy exams, they packed up their Febreze and went straight to Salamander Castle. There they usually tried to make one another miserable, arrange a suitable marriage, amuse themselves with drinking and dancing, or some combination of the above. If Iris's attitude was anything to judge by, the academy-trained researchers of the Thinkers Wing had little patience for the young courtiers. And I am no closer to inventing a new primary color. It needs to be ready in advance of the celebrations so that we can use the color to dye the prince's robes. I promised Prince Rodolfo that the color would be ready soon. Why was I so confident? The last word was a wail of shame. Astrophil was unsympathetic. What a prima donna. You would think that the entire world revolves around her invention. Petra saw his point, but felt sorry for Iris. She understood how easy it was to put emotion into a project. Iris, don't worry. You still have several weeks before the prince's birthday. You have time. Iris sniffed. Can't you just turn your magic off? Go into acid retirement, maybe? Retire? Iris noted. You can't just wish away your magic. Anyway, my gift has its compensations. Like what? Well, for example, if I get emotional enough and touch a patch of phosphorus, I can make a green so bright it would make your eyes sing. Doesn't seem worth it. What's the point of a magical talent that makes your skin ooze acid every time you get angry or sad? Iris chuckled, slowly at first, then she laughed, as if Petra had said something hilarious. Oh, you little lamb, she wheezed. Clearly no one has ever attacked you. No one has ever done you an ounce of harm in your life. Am I right? Her laughter died away and was replaced by an earnest voice. I do hope that I will continue to be right. Now get out of my laboratory. I'm giving you the day off. That was Iris. She had never bothered to learn Petra's name. She was cranky, self-absorbed, and arrogant, but she could surprise you. Petra heard protectiveness in the woman's voice, and she suddenly realized that Iris liked her.